This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all, and neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, as you know, 90-ish% of our listener base are women. Women love true crime. Like, of course, we have a bunch of men that listen too, but it's just a known fact that true crime is overwhelmingly consumed by women. So the question is, why do women love true crime? Everybody, it's me, Jess. Russ and I have a really good friend named Deniz Kofteci, and she is actually a documentary producer and documentary researcher for HBO. She produced a news segment a few years back, and it was to figure out why women love true crime. Deniz herself is a huge true crime fan, and she's actually one of our patrons because she loves our show too. So we decided, let's give her a call. She lives in LA. We did a Zoom call with the three of us. And we were like, let's just call her and talk about what she thinks about why women love true crime, what she discovered while interviewing different psychiatrists. And she actually had Paul Holes on her docu-short. She also had Last Podcast on the Left on there. So we wanted to give her a call and just see what she thinks and have a pretty casual conversation about why women love true crime. She also has a podcast with her best friend, Molly, and we talk a little bit about that as well. So I hope you guys really enjoy this bonus episode. It's just something fun that we're throwing on the feed. We had a really fun time, a cool conversation, and of course, just in Wife of Crime fashion, we go off topic, we laugh, we make fun of each other, we were all drinking. It was a really good time. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm also going to post the links of the video she produced in the show notes so that you guys can check it out. This is our conversation with our good friend, Deniz. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories and he reacts to them. This week, we're here with a little bit of a different type of show. We are here with our friend, Deniz. And I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
What kind of friends are we? Just kidding.
It's
Nobody
Kofteci.
How do you pronounce it? I don't want to butcher it.
It's Kofteci. I mean, it's technically Kofteci. but my parents just like converted it to Kofteci for Americans. So that's what it is.
Oh, okay. Kofteci. Deniz Kofteci.
And I'm here too, even though Jess didn't introduce me.
Russ, you don't need an introduction. You're always here. So we are here with Deniz because a while back she produced a news segment about why women love true crime. And so we're going to talk about that. And then she also is the co-host of a podcast that we're going to talk about later too.
Well, in honor of Deniz being here, I went and got a classy drink because I know Deniz is a classy woman. So I got myself some boxed wine.
Oh, but barefoot? Like, wow, that.
So let's get this going. I never had boxed wine. I'm not. Wait.
At least it's not Franzia, I guess, but barefoot. That's pretty low rent. They have like better boxed wine. But.
I know Russ wouldn't let me buy it. I tried.
Bro, I
he was like, it's too expensive. He's like, it's like $2 more for.
It was literally $2 more.
No,
well,
cheers. Drink that. It's going to taste. Let's see.
It tastes like wine to me. I'm a simple man.
Yeah. Okay. It's good.
Well, let's tell them how you guys know each other, how we all know each other. But Russ and Deniz met each other first.
I think I should tell this story because Russ isn't going to tell the accurate story.
Uh-huh.
I was working at this like really hipster music venue in the Lower East Side in New York City. And one day they hired this new manager who came in who was very out of place, who I thought was maybe lost. I was like, did he know what kind of job this is? He comes in like with his accent, talking about the Knicks, talking about sports. He's like, like kind of like.
Here we go.
Like, oh, this is gonna be weird for him. And I was like, how can I make this man's life a living hell to see if he can last or not? By just being myself. I was also like, how can I just make sure that he's not going to ever make me do anything ever? But that's how we met. And and then also he kept talking about a wife he had. And I was like, oh, sure. I was like imagining whenever Russ would talk about his wife, I was like, oh yeah, I was like expecting, I thought she'd probably be pretty, but like, and then when you first came in, I remember I was like, va 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 boom. Like, okay, Russ can't be that bad if this is who married him. I'm like, he must be like, okay, like pretty decent. I was like, she's a nurse, like she works in a hospital. She has like a medical degree and she's married to this guy. Okay, he can't be that big of a loser. And
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. One thing I love about you is that you can roast him because he's the roast king. He roasts everyone and makes fun of everyone. But when it comes to you, I think he met his match.
Most of the time, I'm just making obvious observations and just calling what I see. Like if I call Deniz crazy, it's just an obvious observation. Everyone knows, and she knows too.
The amount of times that you would also, I was thinking, like, if someone broke into your house, if you guys are ever in a situation where like you had to fight off someone or like anything, Jess is the only way you're going to get out of it alive because Russ is such a pansy when it came to like having to fire someone, or if I was like, Russ, we had to like train bartenders and I'm like, this bartender sucks. You got to get rid of them today. He'd be like, I don't know.
That is not true. I just didn't care enough.
You're like, I'm going to have to talk to them upstairs. I'm like, yes, Russ, you're going to have to go upstairs and talk to this 5'2" blonde girl and tell her that she's not coming in again.
It's because he's actually nice inside.
I'm not that nice. I just don't want to talk to people.
No, you felt bad. You're right. He is nice. It was like a shock when I figured that out. I was like, oh God.
This is all lies.
All right, so let's talk about your. It was like a short, like a two-part docu-series short.
How about what is it called and where can we find it?
Okay, what's it called? Where can we find it, Deniz?
So it's Why Do Women Love True Crime? And I did it when I was working for the local ABC station in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And it ended up airing like on all of our the station I worked for, which I won't name because it's embarrassing, they owned like hundreds of local stations across the country. And it's like a 2-part series that we did. And it was really interesting. I mean, because I love true crime, but I suppose like you feel a little guilty about it because you're like, why do I love watching other women get murdered? Like, why do I love these like horrible, horrible stories? And there was a true crime festival happening in DC. So I was like, perfect opportunity to go. And also Paul Holes, who's like the detective from the Golden State Killer case, was in town. And I was like, oh, how can I get myself an interview with Hunky Paul Holes?
Wait, is this because everyone finds him hot? He's like the true crime heartthrob besides me?
Yeah. And you know what? He wouldn't be hot if it wasn't for him finding, like, if it wasn't for what he did, he would just be a cop, you know?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think because he was the one that, you know, was a huge part in finding who the Golden State Killer was, it like made him, you know,
yeah, and he's so nice. And he's like really makes eye contact really well, you know, and like acts like you're important. And I'm like,
So he doesn't have bad social anxiety like the rest of us then.
No, not at all. Like he was great. But yeah, so that was why we did it. But it was really interesting because I think it was like accurate. It was actually also come to face to face with my own reality. I'm like, oh, this is why I am the way that I am. Yeah, into it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like true crime is such a weird genre because you do feel kind of guilty in a sense, or sometimes guilty or sometimes weird about enjoying listening to like brutal murders. But at the same time, women have just been into this for so long. I feel like it's just part of, I don't know, our genes at this point. I feel like women for so long have been, I mean, I think just in general, I think something that you mentioned in the I think it was the second episode when you talked to the last podcast on the left in the second episode, and Henry. What am I talking about? Henry said that like we used to watch public lynchings or public, you know,
the public executions.
Yeah, it's like it's been part of our culture for so long to be fascinated by like the macabre and like the, you know, true crime stuff. But for me personally too, it's weird because in my job I see a lot of death. And so it's like, why? And I was traumatized by a lot of the death I saw, especially during COVID. So then, but simultaneously, I'm not traumatized by listening to these like true crime stories and researching all these cases. It's so bizarre.
I always thought that women liked true crime because if they know what's happening, I always thought they felt like it's less likely to happen to them.
Yeah, that is like the cost, and like that is a theory. And in like one of the psychologists we talked to said that, like, you know, women think watching it, you're going to be more prepared, even though that's irrational and not true. You know, like this, it won't, like, it really won't actually help you. And you can think that you're the more prepared because you're seeing like, well, I would never marry a man like Scott Peterson, or like, I would never put myself in that position, but you can never be prepared. But then there was another.
Maybe you carry a gun because you watch a lot of true crime and now you're prepared and you shoot a sucker.
Well, I think you could carry a gun because you watch a lot of true crime, but that doesn't mean that you're still going to be able to protect yourself. Like, are you going to carry it around with you walking down the street, like from the subway to home from work, and then like whip it out really quick? No, like
maybe like Yosemite Sam, and like you're a quick draw and you. Or well, if you're in Texas, you can. If you're like living in the Bronx, you can't have one legally.
True.
And also, if it's in the middle of the night and you don't suspect like your husband, like a Russ, is going to strangle you to death, you know, it's really hard to reach for that gun while you're being, you know, smothered. So
no, it's so true.
Well, if you're going to kill someone, don't kill your spouse, because then you're definitely going to jail. You got to get a random person.
I have like 90%. It's like some crazy amount of time where it's like 90% of the time. I'm making up that number, but it's close. That it's like an ex or a current spouse that murders.
Yeah. I've talked about that in one of my episodes. It's like most of the time it's someone you know.
I think it's most likely someone you know because you're most likely to annoy that person the most.
Or they would care. Like, because it's like, why are you going to kill? Right? But the random murders are like terrifying. Those are the ones that really, really scare me. There was a girl LA, I live in Los Angeles, and it is kind of like it's a wild, wild west out here. Like things are crazy in these streets. Yeah. And there's a girl like that was like working at this high end furniture store in a really nice part of LA. Mm-hmm. And it was like 2 p.m. She was working in the store by herself. This was last week.
Oh, I remember hearing about this.
Horrifying. This homeless guy walked in and she sent a text message to her friend like, I'm getting a really bad vibe from this guy. 15 minutes later, he stabbed her to death, killed her.
That's so nuts.
And then what's the reason? There's no really reason. It's just a crazy fucking weirdo.
Yeah, those are the scariest ones.
But if she had a pistol, not that I walk around with a pistol because I'm New York, she could have shot the shit out of him.
I know, but I don't think that mentality, like it's a nice thing to think about, but I feel like the reality is in the moment, I don't know if listening to true crime is going to be the thing that saves you. Like
sometimes I feel like I'm more prepared for like crimes just because I've witnessed a lot of crimes like in New York. And I'm like, all right, well, I know what to look for a little bit. Sometimes you can see the signs coming. Like, you know, bums in the subway, they start jerking off. You just switch cars. It's kind of like that. You just get away from it.
I mean, men are more likely to be murdered by sheer numbers. So Russ, your chances are pretty high. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm really fast.
Okay. The other psychologist, which I actually believed her theory more, was like a lot of suburban women or like women in general. If you don't have a lot of trauma in your life, if your life is just like pretty easy, if things are going well and you don't have too much to be worried about, getting the adrenaline rush of watching these true crime stories is like, it's like a feeding a need to like feel fear.
Yeah.
Feel something.
That makes a lot of sense because I feel like if your life is like a little boring, or not boring, but I guess like same old shit all the time.
Yeah. Like, and like nothing to fear. Yeah.
Yeah. Watching true crime or listening to these podcasts is going to be something that makes you, I don't know, excited. Or I feel like, Russ, you're like that with horror.
Yeah, I like horror films because like they're unpredictable. When life's so predictable and every day you go into work, you got the same damn routine. You need something a little unpredictable. You need someone to die, scream, or maybe get away.
Yeah, he's big into horror.
I'm a huge revenge guy. I love revenge though.
Yeah.
But
do you not get as scared? Like, I mean, you're not going to admit if you get scared from horror movies, but do you get scared watching true crime as like, is it a similar adrenaline rush?
The only case that scared me was the Golden State Killer because he comes in your house while you're sleeping. If I'm awake, I feel like I'm fine. Like at least I have a fighting chance, unless someone hits you in the back of the head when you're not looking. But if someone comes up to you, I could run, I could fight back. But if someone's in your house standing above you in your bed and you didn't hear them come in, that freaking scared me. What's the book called?
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yeah, what's it, Michelle McNamara or something?
Yeah.
So that scared me. After I listened to the audiobook of that, because obviously I don't read that much.
Really can't read, don't read. Yeah.
Well, because, sounding out a whole book full of words takes forever. But after listening to that, I was sleeping. And if I saw shadows, like, there's random shadows from lights, cars passing by, like I'd get startled, or like I'd make sure I have to leave a light on in the kitchen. So when my door's open in the bedroom, I can still kind of see if someone was there. And now...
And then when you saw him, like, I know when he was younger, I'm sure he was much different. Like, but then like seeing him now, I'm like, you were the one that was able to do all of this. Like you slobby mutant person. Like how?
Yes.
Mutant person.
He looks like he lived in a sewer full of radiation. Like he grew from he was like a Ninja Turtle supervillain that they fought, like B-Rock and Rocksteady or something. I mean, you guys might not know that one, but
no, but that's what's even. I'm like, ugh, God. Like if I'm gonna die, and then you just like see the person hovering over you is like, this is it.
Yeah.
He would have like plates on their back and shit.
Yeah,
like that was so
crazy.
I always said you just have to kill me because I would always think if you're going to do that, you're going to kill me anyway. So I'm just going to try. So I would think when that's going on after I read the book, I'd get up in the middle of the night. I have my socks on. I'm like, if someone was here and I walk and I like kind of slip because I have my socks on, I'm dead.
Yeah.
This sucker got shoes on.
That's true.
Yeah, they got better grip. You got to sleep in your sneakers, folks.
Sleep in your sneakers. Did you ever see the movie The Strangers?
No.
I think I did.
I don't think I did.
It's like the best horror movie ever. Well, because it's so scary. It's the scariest movie. And it's like Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. They're a couple and they're like they go on like a little retreat for the weekend to like an upstate cabin. And then they like hell ensues, but it's like so slow and kind of realistic in a way. I'm like, that is what's so scary. Like the random, like you just never know when a random psychopath is going to cross your path and be like, you know what? These people, today's the day.
Yeah.
You know what's funny now, though? Now, after you said that, I have no choice. Jess is going to make me watch that
I'm
tonight.
definitely watching it tonight.
No, you have to. I can't believe you have. It's like one of the best horror movies I think I've ever seen.
Really? I've never seen
And
it.
it's not gory. Like it's not gory at all, but that's what makes it even scarier because it's
I
just
don't like horror movies
terrifying.
that like just try to scare you with gore. That's not like scary. That's just you throwing a lot of special effects and blood. Has nothing to do with fear.
No.
You know what horror movie really got to me? I know we're going off topic, but
It's what we do.
Hereditary. Have you ever seen that?
Wait, no, because I was confused that one with the one about the little boy that is schizophrenic, and that's not it, right?
No, Hereditary is about the lady who her mom is a witch and her so it's just nuts.
You can't tell too much.
Yeah, I
You can
can't
never
tell
watch
too
it.
much
It's just
because
like a little twist.
It's like a slow burn and you learn different things like throughout the movie, and it's just one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's about
very
ghost. Isn't it a
psychological.
ghost? Isn't like the ghost like something she's possessed, and then like the daughter, because like the son dies, or like the daughter dies.
The
but then
daughter
comes back.
dies. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
I just hate that I agree with Russ about the ghosts thing, because whenever I listen to like your Patreon and when like Russ is like, I'm not afraid of ghosts, so I don't care, I don't believe in them. I'm like, ugh. I mean, I hate it because that's why ghost horror movies don't scare me, because I'm like, a ghost isn't going to come and get me, but like that probably means it will. A ghost will come and get me.
I want a ghost to come get me.
I
Please, I wanna see
really, no, this is genuine. I really want Russ to be haunted.
Oh,
What a bitch.
I really do, because I'm so tired of you not believing in things. Please, someone haunt him, please.
Bring it. I want all the smoke.
I really do. I hate that he doesn't believe in anything paranormal. It drives me crazy.
Have you ever seen anything paranormal? No.
Yes, I have.
You're nuts.
Talked about it on Patreon.
They're going to send you to the nut house. You got to stop.
maybe you know what? Jess, you are being haunted by Russ. He's a demon and he has come to ruin your life. And that is your cross. Now I get it. Now I understand why he's found you. You know, the luckiest thing that's ever happened to this man in his entire life.
Oh,
I remember why I hate Denise now.
Oh,
I
you
forgot.
do
I was like, well, I
not.
forgot why I hated her.
you do not hate her. All right. So wait, let's get back to the true crime thing. So do you agree with the doctor that they featured, Dr. Lieberman, about the loss aversion theory? Like, do you agree that that it's like about survivor skills and stuff like that? Or do you think it's more because we just need some excitement in our lives? Or do you think it's a combo of maybe both?
I think it's a combo, but the loss aversion does make sense. Like, even like, you never want to blame the victim, because that's also with the loss aversion. You're like, well, see, that happened to her, but it's not going to happen to me because I wouldn't make those same mistakes. And it's like, we've all made those same mistakes. Have I gone on dates with questionable men? Have I stayed in long-term relationships with men who at the end I was like, could he kill me? Maybe. Like, you never know.
Yeah.
And like, or walking home alone at night, or having like a one night stand. Like, we've all done. It's like the fact that you escape death is not because you're any smarter than women that don't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of luck, or
You weren't in this
Really?
situation.
So just lucky you're still alive right now. Is what you're saying.
honestly, there's like, I mean, I've definitely put myself in situations now looking back where I'm like, oh my God, like why did it happen to this girl, but not to me? There's like no rhyme or reason, but it does make you think when you're watching them. I think at least like, you're like, well, I would never, or I would see the signs coming, but
Mhm.
you really can't. There's no way. And he
There
does
isn't.
say in the, we interviewed him, he's like, you think that, but like, there's no rationality there. You really can't. You can't be prepared, and you can't actually, by watching it, protect yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. So there's like a huge community of people on Twitter that hate the true crime community.
I don't
You know,
blame
and I hate those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't understand. I mean,
I can see why.
Russ understands them. He sees why they hate us, the true crime people.
It's funny. I'm kind of in the true crime community, even though I don't feel like it.
Yeah, well, you're a true crime podcast host, so.
Yeah, so you are in the community. I get their point for sure, but I also think they're not understanding. They're looking at it as like purely exploitative, and I get that, but that's such a there's no nuance. Then it's like it's not. That's as if like it's people aren't getting joy out of talking about like when Gabby Petito's case was like blowing up. People were like, it's disgusting that people are covering it so much. Why do people care? Why are these people on the internet checking? I'm like, well, actually, because people on the internet cared so much, it did help. Like there was
even her father said it helped.
Yeah, like and sometimes maybe it doesn't help. Like I guess, but no, it can. And the more people that care, and I understand needing to care about a multitude of cases, and there's so many cases that get overlooked because, you know, like Indigenous women and like women of color who their cases aren't as highly portrayed in the media. And that's on the media and that's on people. Cause like, as much as I think the true crime community does care, but I think the coverage is also like the bigger problem.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely an issue with the media. I think people think if you're into true crime, you just love hearing about like other people's suffering. But it's like, I don't know. I want to explain to those people because I've seen them on Twitter before and they hate all these true crime podcasts. There's one girl, she's like a famous YouTuber and she was into true crime and now she's not. And she's like super vocal about being against it. And she really talks a lot of shit about a lot of like true crime podcasts. She was on, have you ever heard of the podcast Going West? No, they're really good. They're a husband and wife duo also. They're a lot more serious than us. But they covered Gabby Petito pretty closely. I think they did like 4 episodes on the Gabby Petito case. And they actually went really in depth. And they got in touch with Gabby Petito's uncle. And he gave them a lot of information. And he was really happy to because he was happy that they were even covering it. And this girl just like destroyed them on Twitter. And she's got a way bigger audience than them. She's got like a couple million YouTube followers. So her just destroying them, like she was just trying to make them look bad. And all they were doing was trying to care and doing what true crime podcasters do. So it was just interesting to see the how, you know, this girl who's so big just tried to completely destroy their podcast.
I don't know if everyone's just trying to help. Sometimes it's just people are looking for a way to make more content. So this is just something else we can talk about. It's relevant in the moment. It's going to catch a lot of eyes. So some people are opportunists.
Sure. But in any case, in all situations, there's like crappy people. But I think those people are few and far between in this case. And I have like heard the argument, like, why are people talking like they are replaying the worst day of someone's life, like the worst moment of someone's existence, and people are replaying it. But for me, I feel like if anything were to ever happen to me like that, if I was like brutally murdered or something horrible happened, the fact that other people could relive it or like talk about it and like kind of go through what I went through, even though I'm dead, at least it's like not being alone, like giving that person of like a compassion of, you know, but then it's like, you don't want that to be the only thing about the person people remember, but
I know. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying though. It's definitely like a conflict inside that I go through sometimes when I'm picking cases. Like I try not to cover cases that are relevant right now because it's so like, you know, it's happening as we speak and it's very sensitive. And like, what if I say the wrong information, or what if later on information comes out that's different? So like I usually steer away from cases that are happening now. Like they're usually either cold, but they've been cold for a long time, or they're closed.
There was one podcast I listened to recently. It's called To Live and Die in LA.
Yes. So good.
So good. And he solves the crime like as he's doing it. I'm like, okay, see, there is, and like also because cops rarely ever solve crimes. Cops are like, the amount of like violent crimes they ever solve is almost zero. And like the one thing with the Gabby Petito case was like, well, now you see, if it hadn't been for that one van that happened to drive by and like happened to have a video and happened to know, her body would still be there. Like they never find bodies. Bodies go missing all the time. Like the amount of people that go missing in national parks and in the woods and the forest that we never find is like astronomical. And like That's a huge problem. So it's like the cops aren't reliable to solve these cases. So unfortunately, you do like getting attention from the public is super important.
Yeah, it is. 100%.
It's kind of like Don't Fuck with Cats, how they solved the case. And they weren't cops. They were just like all like, I don't know, true crime nerds.
Yeah.
And they were just all talking to each other on Reddit or wherever they were talking, and they solved it.
Yeah, that was a really good documentary too. It's true. I feel like a lot of these cases, when they get attention, like, you know, To Live and Die in LA, that was such a well done podcast. I was really happy with that one, like the way it turned out. And yeah, he did a great job with that one. And I feel like there's a lot of those podcasts, like Up and Vanished. I don't know if you've heard of that one. But Payne Lindsay, he's the one that did Up and Vanished, and he's solved, I think he solved one or two cases. I don't remember exactly.
I only listen to podcasts where people get drunk.
Yeah, he does.
Or Radio Rental. That's really good too.
Radio Rental is really good. Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't listened to that one. I will. I also get this part of like, because my sister is like not into true crime at all. And she's always like, what is it? What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with you? And I get that also, like, if things in your life are going well, like if you don't have much to be worried about, then it's much easier to be into true crime, because like if you're living in a war zone, or if you are living a life of like a lot of struggle and you have a lot of other things to be thinking about, the last thing that you're going to want to care about is someone else's horrible life, or like something else like that's terrible. So I get that. And I think a lot of the criticism comes down on like, oh, these like
privileged women, like, yeah, who are like spending all of their time. Or I'm like, yeah, well, because I have the privilege of having nothing else to worry about, I'm going to worry about how this woman got murdered, and I'm going to think about it. I'm going to worry about it.
I guess it's a first world thing, first world problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true, because when we did the podcast back in 2020, I had to take a 6-month break. Like I took 6 months off because of the pandemic. And I was like, so just mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausted from that. It's like, I couldn't come home and research murder. Because normally when I pick a case, it takes me a solid day. Well, it takes me multiple days, but when I'm writing the script, it takes me probably 3 to 4 hours to like write the entire script that I'm going to read to Russ. But it takes multiple days to research it, because I'll listen to a podcast about the case. I'll look up stuff online. I'll watch YouTube videos. I'll watch a documentary. So to prepare for it, it takes a couple days. And then to write it, it's like 3 or 4 hours of just sitting at my computer, writing it all out. And it was like a lot of energy expended on top of my job. So for me, I get that. Like if you're going through a tough time, but then I've heard other people, you know, it's all about different people's coping mechanisms. Because then I've heard about other people who want to listen to true crime after a tough day, because then for them, it like puts them in perspective almost. It makes you realize, well, the shit I'm going through is no big deal compared to what this person went through. You know,
I bet it varies for everyone. Everyone has their own reason for listening.
Yeah, I think it definitely varies for sure. Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all, because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime. You guys already know, because we have been talking about them for a while now. Via Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, Via Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then Via Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then Via Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to viahemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Wife of Crime #1 for 15% off your first order. Have you done any other crime? Because just so everyone knows, you're like a producer, right? Documentary film producer, correct?
Yeah, researcher. So now I'm working as a documentary researcher because I used to work in investigative journalism, and we would report a lot of true crime stories, but they were so breaking, and you would have the story would happen and maybe you would have 2 days to write the script, to get the thing, and then put the story out. And I remember the worst is calling victims. It's the most, you feel disgusting when you're calling victims' families, being like, hey, just double checking. Was this your son? Also, did he get murdered? Just making sure. Okay, when's the funeral? Okay, bye, thanks. Ugh.
That's tough.
And you have to, it was so gross when you have to go on Twitter, and they're like, hey, we heard that you were involved in this crime. Can you get back to us? Thanks, NBC. And you're like, oh, it's you just feel disgusting.
It's good to see that you have a heart though.
Shut up. Thank you, asshole. So now with the documentary research, at least you get a lot of time. And the director I'm working for he's proved himself enough that they give him such a long leash, where we've been doing this research for 2 years. It's really interesting which true crime documentaries and stories get to be told and which ones get rejected. And there's so many really good ones that I've pitched, and HBO's rejected, or I've, for whatever reason, because everyone in the case is dead, or there's not there's not enough visuals and stuff to be told. And so a lot of the time, whenever the Gabby Petito stuff was happening, it was half the reason I think that story even caught attention was because of how much visual footage was available. If she hadn't had that YouTube channel, if they hadn't had all that video and all of that stuff, her case wouldn't have been covered at all. But they need footage. And so a lot of cases don't have any visual assets. So it's not because they don't want to be told. It's just so much harder.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I guess good thing we're doing podcasts now because our stories are told.
Yeah, podcasting has definitely changed the game as far as true crime goes. I feel like the true crime podcast genre exploded so big over the last couple of years. But
you don't need the visual. Yeah. But you need still access to the information, which is what's also super frustrating, because there's so many cases I've wanted to talk about or pitch, and then you run into you try to get FOIA court documents, and a lot of them the cases are so sealed and they refuse access to them, and maybe by sheer luck of a chance you might find one something, but the DEA is extreme, they're the hardest to get, and a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act request. So you can request for the government to give you documents pertaining to any cases, and a lot of newsrooms you'll have to sue the government to get access, and that costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time, and so it's really hard. There's so many cases that just you can't get told, or they go as if no one's ever heard of them, but it's because there's just no information available.
Yeah.
Why do they seal them? Is it just because you think maybe the cops felt like they did a bad job, or they don't want their work to be put out there, or are they still working on the case?
So now this is something I actually know because I'm on the side slowly gathering information about a case that happened in the Bronx that I'm going to tell you about on the side off recording, because I would really love to get your thoughts and possibly collab with you on it. But it's a case. I spoke to Jason Leopold Do you know who Jason Leopold is?
He's a detective.
No, he's not a detective. He's a investigative journalist for BuzzFeed.
Ooh.
And he and I spoke on the phone, and he told me all about FOIA and how to sue the FBI for FOIA records and stuff like that. And a lot of times they'll seal records because there's a lot of misconduct that happened in the case. So if they keep the case cold and then seal the records, no one has access to all the misconduct that occurred with DNA evidence, messed up forensics, crime scene mess ups, because there's a lot of stuff that goes wrong.
So it is cover-ups.
Yeah, it's like they'll keep a case cold for years and years and years because they don't want it to come out that they messed up about certain things. And I'm sure that's not the case every time.
Sometimes they probably don't want to give up their hands. So like if they're investigating someone, they don't want someone to know they're being investigated so they could catch them. Yeah,
sometimes. But like in the case that I'm particularly...
An ideal situation. Like I'm trying to like be an optimist, because I'm normally a pessimist.
Yeah. Well, in the case that I'm like looking into, it's so long. It's been cold for so long that they're really, I'm sure they are trying to find answers, but it's not like an active investigation or anything. Like it's...
No, and the amount of like actual officers and like money that's put into a cold case investigative unit is minimal. Like they barely have any.
One guy working on it.
Yeah, that they don't like all those resources to go to like traffic cop. Like they're not distributing the money to those to actually investigate them. And a lot of the time, like with the DEA, because they have like, if it's like an undercover informant it's a situation, like you never... In my case, like I get a lot of redacted documents. Like the FBI is like the most egregious about. They'll be like, "Yeah, here you go. We're going to send you all of the documents you requested," and then it's like all like black pages,
blackout.
I'm like, it's just like, why? Why did you even bother?
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Yeah,
that's what redacted means, but I kind of figured it out after all the blackout stuff.
Well, we can tell you're not a ferocious reader. Got it.
Oh. Yeah, redacted means that they black out everything and you can't read it. So it's just a waste of paper, essentially, or discs, whatever.
Do they black it out before they send it to you, or is it blacked out in their files too?
No, they black it out before they send it to you. They black out like particular information that they don't want you to see.
I guess maybe their justification is like, this stuff is detrimental to the case. We can't let it get out.
I don't know.
Yeah, like it would implicate them, or they'll always say like, well, it's a security. It's like there's a reason like we have to keep this secure for the security of this case, but usually you never know. I mean, it's in my experience, it's almost always like because they're hiding something that's like not helpful actually to the case. Like they're hiding it for the benefit of, they're protecting someone else, not the victim. But I think it does happen both ways, I'm sure.
I know a lot of people. I got to know someone in these places where you just get like unredacted stuff.
No, you have to know like...
I got a guy.
Like a whistleblower you're going to find? Yeah, no. They're not and then risk their job. And then they can get like...
They're not going to risk their job for you.
100%. Yeah.
Then they get to be on Wife of Crime, bro.
And go to prison. Like,
I'll send them cigarettes.
So is there any true crime case that really sticks with you? Like, is one in particular, or maybe one or two, or something that like Russ is the Golden State Killer. Like that's the one that like really haunts him. It's probably the only true crime case that he really thinks about and knows a lot about because it haunted him so much.
Because I think he could get me.
Do you have something like that?
I do. And it's like as if I wouldn't, I'm like, no, don't think about it that much. Of course.
Okay.
But the one, if there's this, it's a story about this girl who went to FSU. And this was like in 2000, it was like when I was in college, like 2006, 2007. Mm-hmm. Oh. And she had a little bit of marijuana in her dorm room and she got caught. Mm-hmm. And then the campus police reported her to like the police, and the police were like, listen, we're going to kick you out of school. We're going to tell your parents, and you're probably going to go to jail unless you become an undercover informant for us and you bust this big drug dealer in Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh my God.
And she was like, okay, absolutely. Because like they scared her into thinking she was going to go to prison, like or get kicked out of school. And she's like, I don't want parents to know.
Yeah.
So the Tallahassee police wiretapped her and made her do a deal with this big time drug dealer asking for like a bunch of guns, tons of like cocaine, heroin, and marijuana, like a way more than any that's like a suspicious amount of stuff they were making her ask him for.
Yeah.
And they were trailing her to do this to do this deal. And they lost track of her.
Oh.
And then she ended up getting murdered because the drug dealer obviously was like, this is definitely suspicious. Like, you're a college student asking me for like 20 guns and bricks of cocaine. Like, ma'am, you're dead. And they shot and killed her in the desert. And it took years for her parents to figure out what ever happened, because the DEA and the police covered it up and they wouldn't.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, fuck.
Horrible.
Her
name's Rachel Hoffman. Look it up. It's horrible. And the more horrible, and like, because of, in that case, the fact that they wouldn't even, it took the parents years of fighting to find out what actually happened to her. Like, they had no idea. And the police, like, they all knew the entire time, but didn't share. And the thing that's really scary about that case to me, and like, it's the DEA and like the police use undercover informants a lot, and they do threaten people a lot that are in vulnerable situations, being like, okay, well, you have to inform for us in order to get out of what you're doing. And they don't protect these people. And then you never hear about what happens to them. Like, they'll die, they'll get murdered, things happen. And it's the chance of ever knowing these cases, like as they unfold, is so rare. So the ones we do know, beyond that, like, there's thousands more.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot. Like, I mean, White Boy Rick, he didn't die, but it's very similar to the White Boy Rick story.
They just use you to their advantage, and they don't care. You're disposable. You're like a piece of garbage.
That's crazy.
Her story was so shocking. Yeah. And it's shocking because she was like just a college, like a normal and like my age college student, and like just a little bit of marijuana to scare her that badly. Yeah.
Well,
and I mean,
everyone, but
so horrible. And I think it's the worst that they covered it up for so long. Like, how that just really.
Yeah, like, just tell her parents, her poor parents.
I think the reason these things get covered up so much is because it seems like there's no consequences for them for covering up anything. It's like, oh, that just happens.
Mm-hmm.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's like you would think that the cops would have to, like, somebody would be held responsible. That is insane. What's her name again?
Rachel Hoffman.
I've never heard her case before. I'm going to have to look that up. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And so, like, when I started looking into it, there's like other cases that are similar, but that was when I realized, like, getting a FOIA request from the DEA, getting any of those documents, they're so sealed and covered up. So, like, you can't, and the DEA has no, they're not under there's no law or any requirement for them to even report how many undercover college student informants they have. Like, they don't.
Wow.
So the number, like, is, nobody knows. We don't know.
Wow. That is sick.
Well, because who polices the police? That's the thing. Like, you can kind of do whatever you want, and you just hope that they're good
doing
people.
the right thing. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was in 2008.
Okay.
But yeah, her case, that'd be the one.
Yeah, that one, I've never heard that. That's crazy. I mean, I'm honestly, because I've been doing true crime research now for so long, I'm sadly not surprised. Like, I'm more surprised. I'm not surprised that they put her in that situation to have to make a crazy deal with a drug dealer, but I am surprised that they lost track of her.
And it took them like more than a day. I forget. It was like almost like 48 hours, like 36 hours for them to find her body. Like, they lost her that badly. Like,
oh my God.
And like, it's like, how do you screw it up that much? That's embarrassing. And none of the cops got in trouble. None of them got fired. None of them got anything, because it was like, well, that's just part of the job. You know?
After just using someone that's smoking a little weed, like, that's not like, you're not a drug deal. Like, everyone does. Like, it's no worse than drinking, and you're treating her like she's a felon.
Yeah, that's nuts. Do you have a lot of friends into true crime?
Not that many. Like, I and the ones I do have, like, you cling to them because you're like, I can talk to these people about, like, you can both be creepy together.
Yeah.
So when you have them, but it's like surprisingly not as many. And that's why also listening to podcasts and stuff makes you feel like, okay, I'm not such a psychopath. Like, there's so many other people like you.
Yeah, you feel like I feel like podcasts, like you feel like you're in the same room with the people talking. They just can't hear your responses, but you feel like you're part of the conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you meet someone else who's into it, you're like, oh, yes. And then you can share the stories and it feels like so exciting.
Yeah, it is cool. So you have a podcast. What's the name of it?
Gossip That's Good for You.
Gossip That's Good for You. It's not true crime. How would you describe your podcast?
It's one of my best friends from college, and we talk about, like, we're both really into pop culture and stuff, but we use stories from pop culture and like celebrity gossip, but then use those stories as a way to link them to our real life. And like you talk about, like, go through deep conversations about things that we're going through, or like we watched and Just Like That. I know Russ is a big Sex and the City guy.
I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what is Just Like That?
Sure, yeah. Well, you had no idea.
I like when we talked about Don't Look Up. I listened to that one.
That movie was so good. I loved it. But within that one, like talking about, like, with Samantha, what it's like to lose a best friend, and like, so not talking about the show, but talking about like something that happened in that show, which is pretty significant. And then like how to deal with like when that happens and things like that.
Like in your life.
Well, that's why I can listen to the podcast, because I don't care about pop culture. And I know Denise is the biggest Taylor Swift fan of all time. If anyone follows her on any social media, Jesus Christ.
She is a super fan.
Oh, my God. There's a poster in the background right now on this whole Zoom chat. It's Taylor Swift in a bikini. But I like the podcast because I don't necessarily like pop culture, but it just kind of leads in its own direction, because Denise is kind of like all over the place like me. Mm-hmm. And then her co-host is kind of like you, where she like stays on track and is a nice, good person. So like it's kind of like ours, but
not the same subject.
Yeah, they start off on like The Bachelor or something, which I don't care. And I'm like, oh, this is going to stray off any second now.
Yeah.
She is nice, and like she's not into true crime at all.
Well,
like,
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask.
Oh yeah.
Your co-host name is Molly, and I was going to ask if she was into true crime, but no, she's not.
No. She doesn't. She's like, why do you like it? It's scary. Because I was telling her I got like really into watching airplane crash videos on YouTube. Okay, I'm sorry. Actually, no. And like, you're not watching the crash happen, but it's this YouTube channel called Mayday where they do reenactments of plane crashes.
Oh God.
And I was like, I found it really soothing, because like I'm afraid of flying, and for whatever reason I was like, like this actually helps. And I don't know, that makes me a psychopath. I know, and that's how Molly reacted to me too. And I was like, oh, just me? Oh, embarrassing.
I'm so scared of flying. I don't know if I could watch that. I'd be even more afraid of flying, I think.
I don't know, like, I mean, and then like because I go on like binges of like, so once I started watching those, then I got like every single book about plane crashes to like binge read. Like, my brain works in mysterious ways that I'm even a little afraid of sometimes, but Molly is very normal. And yeah, no, she's not into any of that. Like, she doesn't, she doesn't watch, we watch different kinds of things, but she's not into true crime at all. Yeah. And she thinks it's weird. Not weird, but she's like, aren't you scared? Why do you want to be scared all the time? I'm like, I'm not scared. I find it calming. What do you mean?
Yeah, it's cool though. It's good to be on a podcast with someone who you care about. Like, for us, for instance, like, we love each other, but we disagree on like so many things. Like 70% of stuff we could disagree on. And I feel like it's good to have opposing perspectives. Like, if you and Molly have been best friends for years. So like, you guys bring different things to the table, but that's what makes it good. Like, if sometimes podcasts, when they have hosts that are the same, like I noticed that with like My Favorite Murder, like true crime wise, like My Favorite Murder or Morbid, like I like those podcasts, but they're just repeating each other's opinion over and over again. Like, there's no room for opposing views. There's not really any room for debates. And like, I think that's healthy. And especially now in our society, like, no one knows how to disagree anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to feel safe when you're disagreeing too. We had one episode about age gap relationships, like what gap in age is too big. Mm-hmm. And we both had a very different perspectives and feelings about that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know which number off the top of it. If I did know which episode number, we haven't had that many, but
what's the age
what's gap? The number? Oh, yeah. For me, I think like 15 years. but it also depends on what age you're meeting the person, like if you're meeting them at 40 and they're 60, I think that's like, okay, I can see that being okay. But Molly had she's like, there's no gap too big. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was an interesting conversation, but it's also like with the person I couldn't feel comfortable with or trust, like we would have gotten in a brawl, would have been like, we're fighting, we're going to offend each other and I'm going to hurt your feelings and you're going to hurt mine. And then we'll never talk again. When it's someone you trust and you care about and you can have those kinds of conversations. So
Molly kind of thinks like Anna Nicole Smith, like there's no age too old. Like you could get the rich dude, bury him and move on.
She's like a romantic where she's like, but they could just be in love. I'm like, could you be in love with an 80-year-old? She's like, yes, love. I believe all of love. I'm like, oh, okay.
I worked with this guy that I think he was about 20 years older than his girl. And they met when she was 30 or he was like almost 50. And at that time he had energy. But now that he's older, he was like, when I was working him, he was probably like closing it. He was like 65 or something like that. And he was saying it was no big deal when I was young. Like when I was like late 40s, he goes, but I'm tired now and she still wants to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that being an issue. Like he just wanted to stay home and after working all day. And
as a man, like sometimes your woman can be too old. Like Jess is, 4 years younger than me, but she's getting old
I was gonna say
now.
Jess is younger than you. 40.
But she's getting too old.
He
for
just
me.
he doesn't mean any of this shit.
I know. Too old. And like also Russ doesn't do anything. Russ has never left the state of New York, right? Is he still not like you've never left the East Coast? What are you talking about? She's too old. I doesn't want to do things. What are you doing?
I hope your headphones catch fire.
He's been to Florida. That's it. That's the only other.
Been to Florida.
I go to work. Leave me alone. Big ass glass of wine. That's the biggest glass of all time. Look at that thing. It's bigger than her head.
It is pretty big.
It is. That's why, then it like saves you less trips to have to like refill,
Yeah.
You can fit like a half a box of wine in that.
Exactly. See, I'm smart.
So, I'm trying to think if I have any more questions.
So go find gossip that's good for you.
Yes,
Listen to Denise.
it's
She's
on all
absolutely insane and her host is really nice. So it works out.
It's on all podcast platforms. Are you guys on everything?
Yes.
Okay, like
Yeah,
Apple, Spotify, everything.
Yeah. On all of those things. And I actually got a good microphone now. So my audio isn't terrible. So
I'm
there's
proud of you.
that.
I've noticed it in the last few episodes.
I noticed
Thank
it too, but I didn't sound bad before. I could just tell you were on Zoom or something. It didn't sound bad.
Well,
It
when
just
we
sounds more
started, I was like, okay, Molly, this will be just like a fun project between you and I, right? Like we don't have to tell anybody that we're doing this. Okay. Because like the idea of starting a podcast is so dorky to me. Like I just think it's so
the worst.
embarrassing. It's humiliating. And like telling people you have a podcast, like kill yourself. Like that is just it is so mortifying. But she took it really seriously. And then like, I was like, give it up. I am already a loser. Like what's the worst that people can say about me? They haven't already said, I guess, lean in. So.
Well, it's like that with us too. Like I was really into this in the beginning and he was kind of like, okay, I'll try it, whatever. But now he's like the star of the show. Everyone quotes him. He gets all the good reviews.
Yeah, but I either get the 5 stars or I get 1 stars. Like, I hope he dies. So there's no in between.
Oh, but that's exciting. You have haters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We do.
Jess is my number 1 hater, but besides that.
Oh, yeah, right.
Denise is a very close number 2.
Jess is like your number. The only reason you have anyone that likes you is because of Jess. So,
Oh, so I want to talk about the podcast. You said when you were talking about 80s drinks. And you said, as a bartender, blue drinks are fun. No.
First of all, I didn't say they were fun. I said like I get it why you'd want it blue, but I said it was so annoying when people would be like, can you make my drink blue? I was like, die right now. Die in this bar, pass out, die.
It might taste a little better. No, it's just triple sec that's blue. It's the same shit.
But the blue carousel is like a little orange. I don't know. Like, I mean, it could be fun if you're like on an island somewhere.
Yeah. Those fancy drinks are really fun when you're on vacation. I don't care what anyone says.
I'll drink frozen drinks on vacation too. So I'm kind of
like, would you drink a blue Hawaiian that was frozen?
He would. We were in Miami and he was slurping down those frozen drinks. Don't let him fool you.
Bro,
Pina coladas
in Miami,
on
it's
deck.
different.
I think he even had a Henny colada at one
you
point.
got to get the Miami Vice with the
pina colada strawberry daiquiri. The red with the white. He wasn't a bartender. He was just a manager. Also, can you imagine Russ as a manager?
He managed me. I worked there after you. You kind of left, but I worked at Rockwood and he was my manager. And that was very annoying.
You were like, why don't you do anything? Where are you, Russ? Are you doing your job?
I was usually around the corner. There was like basketball tournaments around the corner, and I would go watch them for like 2 hours.
He really would. He would leave and go watch basketball tournaments.
Like, screw this. The owner doesn't care or even know what's going on. I'm out of here.
Well, Denise, thank you so much for coming on. We really
thank you so much for inviting me. This was so exciting. I'm excited to see your face. You're so beautiful.
Thank you.
I haven't seen you, not you. Jess. And it is exciting to talk to you guys.
Yes, I know. It's been a while. We've been talking on Instagram for so long after you moved away to LA. Do you like living in LA now?
I love it. I'm sorry, like it's 70 degrees every day. It is so lovely.
Yeah.
But you don't even have a tan.
Well, first of all, it's winter. Second of all, how dare you? It's the lighting. But like you just get vitamin D. It doesn't matter. Like every day you're like in the sun. And like people seem happier here. I mean, I loved New York City, but no, LA is best. You guys should come out. I mean, maybe Russ should see the ocean. You know, that would be good for him.
The West Coast.
Listen.
Yeah, see the West Coast.
If the ocean ain't green, I don't like it.
Well, thank you so much. We love you. Thank you for coming on. Everyone go listen to Denise's podcast, Gossip That's Good for You. I'll post it in the show notes. I'll post the link. And I'm also going to post, I guess I can post the YouTube. It's on YouTube, the documentary short, that you did about true crime and women and what we think of true crime. It's on YouTube. Is there any other place to see it or is it just on YouTube?
Just on YouTube because it ran on broadcast. So
okay.
Just on YouTube.
All right. Well, I'll post links to it in the show notes too. And I'll post it on our Instagram.
All right, guys. It's been real. Denise has been here. I'm sorry we had to put you through all of her banter.
Leave her alone.
But she's kind of funny too. So catch you guys next time. Denise, stick around. We'll say bye after this.
Bye.
Peace.